In the 8th year of our marriage, I found the messages, a whole history of them, flirty and explicit, from different men on my wife Jessica's phone. I calmly deleted the records and pretended nothing had happened. Jessica was just stepping out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, as I scrolled through her phone. She didn't look at me, walking straight to her vanity to dry her hair. The drone of the hair dryer filled the bedroom. I tapped open her messaging app. A new message popped up from a contact with no name. Just a cartoon tiger for an avatar. Still sore. I scrolled up. Does your husband even get you off anymore? Jessica had replied with a laughing emoji. Please. We should try doggy next time. You're awful. I stared at the screen, my fingers stiff. Steam from the bathroom crept into the bedroom, making the air feel heavy. Jessica switched off the hairdryer, and the room fell silent. She caught my eye in the mirror. What are you doing with my phone? I placed the phone back on the nightstand. A system update notification popped up. I just cleared it. She didn't seem suspicious. She walked over, smelling of shower gel, and lay down on the bed, her back to me as she picked up her iPad. I looked at the smooth, pale skin of her back and spoke. Jessica, how long has it been since we've slept together? Her fingers didn't even pause their swiping on the screen. Tired. Not interested. Is it something I'm doing wrong? She finally turned over, her face blank. There was impatience in her eyes, and something else, contempt. Ethan, do you really need me to spell out for you? Her voice was flat. Yes. You're boring. You don't do it for me. Are you happy with that answer? I said nothing. She smirked, then turned back to her iPad. If you're that desperate, take care of it yourself. Or go find someone else. I don't care. I'm your husband. So what? She scoffed. Is there some law that says a husband has to get his wife off? My throat fell dry. So what's the point? What's the point of what? Her tone turned to ice. Ethan, don't start things. It's been 8 years. I'm over it. Just deal with it, and we'll both be fine. You don't get over it with other men. Her fingers froze. The air in the room thickened. She didn't turn around. What are you trying to say? The guy with the tiger avatar, I said. He keeps you from getting bored. Jessica slowly sat up and turned to face me. The impatience was gone, replaced by a profound coldness. You went through my phone? I saw it by accident. She stared at me for a long moment, then suddenly smiled, a triumphant, reckless expression on her face. Yes, he gets me off, and he's not the only one. Her tone was breezy, as if she were talking about the weather. You can't satisfy me, Ethan. Physically, you just don't have it. Others do. Is that answer clear enough for you? I looked at her, feeling no anger, only a cold, heavy weight settling in the pit of my stomach. Perfectly clear. She seemed surprised by my calmness, eyeing me for a second before lying back down. Good. Then don't bother me. I picked up her phone. Right in front of her, I deleted the chat history with the tiger avatar, the explicit text, the hotel location pins, everything. Why delete it? She asked, glancing at me sideways. Saving it as evidence for the divorce? To get a bigger piece of the assets. We're not getting divorced. I put the phone back, lay down, and switched off my bedside lamp. Go to sleep. In the darkness, I listened to the sound of her breathing, my eyes wide open until the first light of dawn. The next day was Saturday. I woke up early and went out to buy coffee and donuts. When Jessica got up, I had breakfast already on the table. She came out in a silk robe and glanced at the table. Without a word, she sat down and took a small sip of coffee. I'm going to my parents' place today, I said. The fridge is getting old, making a lot of noise. I bought them a new one. It's being delivered today. She looked up, surprised. Why all of a sudden? It's old. Time for a new one. I placed a donut on her plate. And that pearl necklace of yours, the chain's a bit faded. I'm going to the mall this afternoon to pick out a new one for you. Jessica didn't say anything, looking down at her coffee. But I saw her fingers tighten around the handle of her mug. That afternoon, I had the new double-door refrigerator delivered to my in-laws' house. The old couple was overjoyed. Ethan, you're so thoughtful. We never have to worry with Jessica married to you, my mother-in-law said, patting my back. Jessica's dad nodded in agreement. Better than our own son. I smiled and made some polite conversation. After leaving their place, I drove to a jewelry store downtown and bought a Tiffany Keys necklace with a platinum chain and diamond chips. It wasn't cheap. When I gave it to Jessica that evening, her eyes lit up for a moment before she masked it. Why did you suddenly buy this? It's been 8 years, I said. I haven't really gotten you anything nice. She held the necklace, admiring it in the mirror, a slight smile on her lips. Thank you. Let me put it on for you. I stepped behind her, lifted her long hair, and fastened the cool chain around her pale neck. As I secured the clasp, my fingertips brushed against her skin. She shivered just slightly. That night, she didn't sleep with her back to me. For the next few days, I acted as if everything was normal. I made her breakfast in the morning, came home on time from work, and occasionally asked how her day went. Jessica seemed to slowly let her guard down. She even started talking to me about things at the office, a colleague's promotion, a difficult client. I listened quietly, nodding along. She probably thought our fight that night was water under the bridge, forgotten and gone. She didn't know. The day after I discovered her secret, I used her birthday to guess the password to her company's internal server. She was a sales director at a major import-export firm, managing a portfolio of important clients. Over the next few nights, I sat in my study, the glow of my monitor lighting my face. Bit by bit, I downloaded everything from her work computer. Client databases, price quotes, historical contracts, records of under-the-table kickbacks, and proof of the side deal she was running using company resources. All of it was dragged, compressed, encrypted, and stored in a place she would never find. My degree was in cybersecurity. This was second nature. I wiped all the access logs, leaving no trace. Once, Jessica brought me a glass of milk, seeing the screen filled with dense lines of code. Still busy? Yeah. Small issue with the company server. Handling it remotely, I said without looking up. She put the milk down and left, never suspecting a thing. A week later, Jessica's company had a team-building event at a spa resort in the suburbs. She was in high spirits, humming a tune as she packed. Before she left, she gave me a rare, spontaneous kiss on the cheek. I'll be back tomorrow night. Have fun. I smiled and saw her to the door. The moment the door clicked shut, the smile vanished from my face. I went back to the study and turned on my computer. I connected to a VPN, routing my IP address through a server in another state. Then, I anonymously logged into her boss's email account using a back-end vulnerability I'd found weeks ago. I drafted an email to several of Jessica's biggest clients. Attached was her most recent price sheet, but I had altered the prices, lowering them by 15%. The body of the email was polite, stating that Director Jessica Pierce had approved this special discount to thank them for their long-term partnership and that she looked forward to their continued cooperation. Click Send. Next, using another disposable email address, I sent a message to her company's compliance department and her CEO's executive assistant. The attachment contained screenshots proving some of Jessica's side deals and kickbacks. Send. After it was all done, I cleared my history and logged out. I sat there in the dark and lit a cigarette, the red ember glowing between my fingers. Jessica didn't come home the next night as planned. Around 10, I called her. It rang for a long time before she picked up. It was quiet in the background, but her voice was thick, as if she'd been crying. I'm not coming home tonight. Something urgent came up at work. What's wrong? I asked, my voice filled with just the right amount of concern. It's nothing. Just a small problem. Her voice trembled. I have to go. The line went dead. I put my phone down and went to the kitchen to make myself a bowl of pasta. Jessica came home the following afternoon. Her face was pale, her eyes swollen. She didn't even take off her shoes, just collapsed onto the sofa. It's over, Ethan. She mumbled, her eyes vacant. What's over? I sat down next to her and took her hand. It was ice cold. The clients. The company. She was incoherent. The prices were leaked. The CEO is furious. Compliance is investigating me. How could they have known? She suddenly gripped my arm, her nails digging into my flesh. Ethan, was it you? Did you do this? I looked at her, my expression a perfect mask of confusion and hurt. Jessica, what are you talking about? Why would I do something like that? I don't even know which way the door to your office faces. She stared at me, searching my face for any crack in the facade. But my performance was flawless. The suspicion in her eyes slowly faded, replaced by a deeper despair and confusion. You're right. You don't know. How could you know? She let go of me and curled into a ball, burying her face in her knees, her shoulders shaking violently. It's over. I'm definitely going to lose my job. I might even get sued. Those kickbacks. I could do time for this. I gently patted her back. Don't be afraid. We'll find a way. She shot her head up, her face streaked with tears. What way? You tell me what way. You're a tech guy. What do you know about any of this? I didn't argue, just kept patting her back. Over the next few days, Jessica's phone blew up nonstop. Angry calls from clients, interrogations from her company, and a flood of concerned messages from friends. She withered before my eyes. I took time off work to stay home with her, cooking her meals, fielding her calls, playing the part of the innocent husband, offering unwavering support. My in-laws called, and I took the blame, saying I hadn't taken good enough care of Jessica, that I let her get too stressed out from work, which led to her making a mistake. My mother-in-law sighed on the other end of the line. Oh, Ethan, it's not your fault. It's Jessica. She just wasn't careful. A week later, the decision came down. Jessica was fired All illegally obtained funds were to be repaid, and she was slapped with a hefty fine. Given the scale and impact of her actions, the company reserved the right to pursue further legal action. It meant she was finished in this industry. The day she received the official notice, Jessica locked herself in the bedroom and cried all day. That evening, I brought a bowl of soup into her. She was sitting on the bed, eyes red and swollen, her hair a mess. The polished, arrogant woman I knew was gone. She watched me set the soup down and suddenly spoke, her voice hoarse. "Ethan, why are you being so good to me?" I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at her. "You're my wife. After what I did to you." Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. "I cheated on you. I told you that you were worthless in bed. Why didn't you leave me? Why are you still taking care of me?" I was silent for a moment, then handed her a tissue. "It's all in the past." She didn't take it. Instead, she grabbed my hand like a drowning woman clutching a piece of driftwood. "Ethan, let's start over, okay? I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I promise I'll be a good wife from now on. We can leave this city, go somewhere else where nobody knows us. Can we do that?" Her eyes held a desperate, almost manic plea. I looked at her for a long time. The only light in the room was a dim bedside lamp that cast deep shadows across her face. Then, I gently pulled my hand away. "Go to another city?" I asked softly, my tone as calm as if I were discussing the weather. "And then what? Wait for you to get back on your feet, then find the next man who can get you off?" The plea on Jessica's face froze solid. "What? What did you say?" I leaned forward, closer to her, my voice low and quiet, making sure every single word drilled its way into her ear. "Jessica, how do you think your company found out about all your little secrets?" Her pupils contracted violently, and she began to tremble. It was you. I was the one who deleted the messages," I said slowly, watching the light in her eyes shatter. "I bought you the necklace to make you lower your guard. The new fridge was just a sweet little distraction for your parents. The client files, the price sheets, the proof of your kickbacks. I pulled all of it from your computer, and I was the one who sent those 2 emails." Her mouth hung open like a fish out of water. She gasped for air, but couldn't make a sound. Fear had her in its grip. "But how could you? You're just a pathetic loser who can't satisfy you, right?" I finished her sentence, a cold, mirthless smile touching my lips. "You forgot, Jessica. My degree is in cybersecurity. The boring man who you thought could only fix computers and write code. All it takes is a few keystrokes for him to ruin you." She scrambled backward, pressing herself against the headboard, pulling the covers around her, as if I were a monster. "Why? Ethan, why would you do this to me? Just because I cheated?" she shrieked. "You would destroy my life over that. You're a psycho, a monster." I stood up, looking down at her quivering form. "It's not just about that." I paused, feeling the cold, sharp hatred that had been building inside me for 2 lifetimes. "Jessica, do you believe that a person can die and get a second chance?" She stared at me in terror, not understanding. "I do," I said, my voice soft as poison-laced ice. "Because I've already died once. In my last life, you did the exact same thing. You cheated, you humiliated me, you drained our assets, and then you and your lover cornered me on a rooftop." I leaned down, staring into her face, which was now twisted in absolute horror. "You told me I couldn't satisfy you. You called me a waste of space. And then I jumped. I made a soft thump sound with my mouth. So this time, Jessica," I straightened up, smoothing the wrinkles on my sleeve where she'd grabbed me, my voice returning to its calm, flat tone. "I decided to destroy you first. How does it feel?" Jessica went completely limp on the bed, her eyes vacant, her lips trembling. She couldn't utter a single word. The sheer weight of what I'd said had crushed her reality. I walked to the door and put my hand on the knob. "Oh, right," I said, looking back at her one last time. "I forgot to tell you. Your lover with the tiger avatar, Leo Vance? I anonymously sent proof of his company's tax evasion to the IRS yesterday. Want to bet he'll be going down right along with you." I opened the door, stepped out, and gently closed it behind me. The living room was dark. I walked to the window and looked out at the city lights below. In my pocket, my phone buzzed. I took it out. It was a new message from an unsaved number. "Package received. Final payment settled. Pleasure doing business with you." I deleted the message and put the phone back in my pocket. I stood in the darkness, listening to the muffled sobs coming from the bedroom. The sound was choked and broken, as if something was caught in her throat. Jessica was finally realizing that her life was over. Her career, her reputation, the social capital she was so proud of, all gone. I walked to the entryway and put on my jacket, moving silently. I opened the front door, and the motion-activated light in the hallway flickered on. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the parking garage. The garage was quiet, my footsteps echoing in the silence. My 5-year-old SUV was parked in a corner, covered in a thin layer of dust. I got in, but didn't start the engine right away. I pulled out my phone and opened an encrypted messaging app. "What's the situation with Leo Vance?" I typed. A reply came back almost instantly. "IRS agents were at his office this morning. He's calling in every favor he has, running around like a chicken with its head cut off." "Good," I replied. "Send me a list of his recent contacts." "Understood." A few seconds later, a file appeared. I opened it, quickly scanning the names and numbers. Most were business contacts, a few were government officials, and several were women. My eyes lingered on 2 names. Amanda, Megan. I'd heard those names before in my past life. In the chat logs between Leo and Jessica, they were mentioned occasionally. They were part of the circle the friends Jessica used as a backdrop to show off her own desirability. I closed the file and tossed the phone onto the passenger seat. The car pulled out of the garage and merged into the evening traffic. The city's neon lights cast shifting shadows across my face. I wasn't going home. Instead, I drove to the lakefront. It was far from the downtown core and deserted at night. I found a spot to park, rolled down the window, and let the cool, damp air blow in. Across the water, the glittering skyscrapers of the business district stood tall. Jessica's office was in one of them. It was probably chaos in there right now. She would never guess how I did it. It wasn't just the client data and price sheets. The email I sent to her CEO had another attachment besides the altered quote, a small, processed audio clip. It was from my past life, a recording of Jessica and Leo gloating after a rendezvous about how they were using company resources for side deals, how they were cooking the books. I only needed to clip out the most damning few seconds, clean up the background noise, and it became the final nail in her coffin. As for how I got the audio, before I jumped to my last life, I took a precaution. I had hidden voice recorders in our living room and bedroom. I was originally hoping to catch definitive proof of her affair. I ended up recording so much more. Those recorders were probably thrown out with the trash after I died. But living this life again, those sounds, every single word, were burned into my memory. Synthesizing a new conversation in their voices wasn't difficult. I'd audited a few courses on voice synthesis during my cybersecurity studies. I never thought I'd use it for this. The wind was getting cold. I rolled up the window, ready to leave. My phone buzzed again. The encrypted app. "Leo is looking for Jessica. He seems to think the problem came from her end." I looked at the message, tapping my fingers on the steering wheel. "Dog eat dog. Perfect." I replied. "Let them connect. If necessary, you can help them." "Understood." I started the car and headed back. As I pulled up to our building, I glanced up. The bedroom light was still on. The curtains were drawn, but I could just make out the silhouette of a figure sitting by the window, completely still. I parked the car, but didn't go upstairs right away. I sat for a while, smoking a cigarette. Just as it was burning down to the filter, I saw a black sedan pull up to our building, stopping in the shadows a short distance away. The headlights went out. No one got out. It wasn't a residence car. I narrowed my eyes, watching it. The license plate was intentionally splattered with mud, making it hard to read. A few minutes later, the door to our building opened and a man in a hoodie and a face mask walked out quickly. He glanced left and right before pulling open the sedan's door and sliding inside. The car started immediately and glided silently into the night. Even though he was bundled up, I recognized the way he walked. Leo Vance. He came after all, at a time like this, taking a risk to see Jessica in person. I stubbed out my cigarette, a small smirk playing on my lips. It seemed the gift I'd sent them had truly made them panic. I opened my phone and pulled up the feed from the security cameras at the building's entrance. I'd left a few backdoors in the property management's server 6 months ago under the guise of testing the security system. The footage showed the black sedan leaving the complex and heading east. To the east side of the city was a private club Leo frequented, called the Azure Lounge. In my past life, he'd taken Jessica there a few times. I made a mental note, wiped my access logs, and got out of the car. The key turned in the lock. The door swung open. The living room was a wreck. Cushions were thrown on the floor, the coffee table was knocked askew, and a half-full glass of water had spilled, soaking a patch of the rug. Jessica was still sitting by the bedroom window, frozen in the same position, like a statue. When she heard me come in, her head snapped around. Her eyes were terribly swollen, and her face was stained with dried tears. But now, beyond the despair, they held a sharp, explosive rage and hatred. "You're back," she said, her voice as rough as sandpaper. "Yeah." I bent down, picked up the cushion, and tossed it back on the sofa, then righted the coffee table. "Where did you go?" she demanded, her eyes locked on me. "Out for some air." I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. It was getting stuffy in here. For some air. She shot to her feet, stumbling from the sudden movement. Ethan, you did this to me. You destroyed me. And now you're telling me you just went out for some air. I took a sip of water and looked at her. What did you want me to do? Stay here and watch you cry? Listen to you call me a psycho and monster. That's what you are, she shrieked, rushing at me, her hand raised to strike. I caught her wrist easily. Her hand was cold and trembling violently. Save your energy, Jessica. I let her go, my tone flat. You should be thinking about how to handle the impending lawsuit. The company reserving the right to prosecute wasn't a joke. She staggered back as if I'd drained all her strength, leaning against the bedroom doorframe and gasping for breath. Why? Why are you doing this? She repeated, her eyes wild. Just because of that? Because I cheated? You'd use these methods to get revenge? Ethan, are you even human? I set my glass down on the dining table with a sharp click. I already told you, I said, meeting her gaze. It's not just because you cheated. That ridiculous story about being reborn. She cut me off, her voice rising hysterically. You think I believe that? Ethan, if you're going to make up a story, at least make it believable. You're just a psychopath. You couldn't stand that I was more successful than you. Couldn't stand me looking down on you. So you plotted all of this to destroy me. Isn't that right? I watched her hysterical performance, feeling nothing but a profound calm. She didn't believe me. Of course she didn't. The man I was in my past life, weak, suffocated, and ultimately driven to his death by her and her lover, wasn't worthy of a dramatic second chance in her eyes. She would rather believe I was a calculating monster than accept that the man she trampled under her feet now possessed the power to utterly crush her. Think whatever you want. I turned and walked toward the study. Stop, she yelled from behind me. I stopped, but didn't turn around. Leo was just here. Her voice had a reckless, desperate edge. He told me everything. The IRS is investigating him. And that was your doing too, wasn't it? Yes, I admitted without hesitation. You? She was so furious she was shaking. Do you have any idea who you've pissed off? Leo is not someone you can mess with. He knows people. If you push him too far, he won't let you get away with this. I slowly turned around. The light from the hallway behind me cast my face in shadow. Oh, I said softly. My calm attitude infuriated her. Or maybe it was the fear that was consuming her. She screamed, he'll have you killed. Ethan, he'll actually hire someone to kill you. Just you wait. You're going to die a horrible death. I looked at her face, twisted with fear and rage, and suddenly I smiled. It was a soft laugh, but in the quiet living room, it was perfectly clear. Jessica, thanks for the reminder. I took a step toward her. She instinctively recoiled, her back hitting the doorframe with nowhere left to run. Since he's bold enough to come see you, and bold enough to threaten me. I stopped a foot away from her, my voice dropping to a low whisper. It seems the lesson I taught them was a little too gentle. Jessica's pupil shrank. What? What else are you going to do? I didn't answer, just looked at her for a few seconds. You said he knows people from the streets? I mused. What a coincidence. I think I might know a few people like that, too. With that, I turned, ignoring the expression on her face, and walked into the study, closing the door behind me. From the other side, I heard Jessica's unhinged screams and the sound of something shattering. I paid it no mind. I turned on my computer. The screen flickered to life, its cool blue light illuminating my face. On the encrypted app, a new message was waiting. I clicked it open. It was a more detailed report on Leo's company finances, including records of his most recent illicit fund transfers to several offshore shell corporations. The sender's handle was Old Dog. I typed a reply. Got the files. Check out the Azure Lounge. I want usage records and security footage from Leo Vance's private room. Focus on who he met with tonight. Got it. By the way, boss, some new faces have been spotted hanging around Jessica's parents' neighborhood. Want them taken care of. My fingers paused on the keyboard. Leo was moving faster than I'd expected. Or maybe he was just getting desperate. No, I replied. Just keep an eye on them. Don't let them spot you. Understood. I closed the chat window, leaned back in my chair, and shut my eyes. Jessica thought Leo was her savior. I sat in my study, listening to her broken sobs and the sound of her destroying the living room. The noise eventually faded, replaced by a dead silence. She was exhausted, and it was time for my next move. On the screen, another message from Old Dog popped up. Check the Azure Lounge. Leo wasn't meeting a business associate. He met with Scarface Mike from the West Side. The guy specializes in making problems disappear. They talked for about 20 minutes. Scarface Mike. I'd heard the name in my past life. Leo had mentioned him once while drunk, bragging about a guy who was not clean but got the job done. So Jessica's threat wasn't just talk. Leo was really panicking, turning to men like that. I replied, understood. Keep a close watch on both Leo and Scarface Mike. Keep an eye on Jessica's parents, too. Report any activity immediately. You got it. I shut down the computer and opened the study door. The living room was in even worse shape than I'd imagined. Shards of a broken glass, torn tissues, an overturned chair. Jessica was curled up in a corner of the sofa, her hair a mess, her eyes staring blankly at the floor, as if her soul had been ripped out. I stepped over the debris, went to the kitchen to get her a glass of warm water, and walked over to her. She didn't take it, didn't even look up. "Drink some water," I said. She didn't move. I placed the glass on the coffee table and sat on the sofa opposite her. "Leo came to see you." It wasn't a question. Her body gave a nearly imperceptible flinch, but she remained silent. "Did he tell you he could handle the IRS? Tell you to keep me calm and not to rat him out? Did he also mention that he'd hire someone to take care of this problem for him?" Jessica's head shot up, her bloodshot eyes wide with disbelief and suspicion. How did you know?" "I guessed. I watched her." "Did he also ask you to find a way to get information from me? To see if I had any other evidence? Maybe even get your hands on the original copies?" Her face turned a ghastly white, her lips trembling, confirming my suspicions. A man like Leo, when faced with disaster, thinks only of self-preservation, then finds a scapegoat. Jessica was clearly the one he'd chosen. "He's lying to you, Jessica," I said calmly. "The IRS is on him, not because of my tip, but because his own books were a mess. The holes were too big to patch. The evidence I sent just sped up the process. He can't even save himself right now. So how's he going to save you?" "You're lying." She shot back, as if trying to convince herself. "Leo has connections. He knows a lot of people. He can definitely fix this. He knows Scarface Mike." I cut her off. Jessica's voice died in her throat. A flicker of pure fear crossed her eyes. She knew what kind of man Scarface Mike was. He didn't hire Scarface Mike to fix his tax problems. He hired him to shut me up. I leaned forward, locking my eyes on hers. "And to shut you up? When a man is desperately trying to clean up his own mess, do you think he's going to work hard to protect his accomplice or find a way to make sure she can never talk again?" The color drained from Jessica's face, and she began to shake uncontrollably. She wasn't stupid, just backed into a corner, instinctively grabbing for anything that looked like a lifeline. Now, I had snapped that lifeline in two. "No, that's impossible," she muttered, her eyes darting around frantically. "He wouldn't dare. We're tied together. When the rope is about to break, the one with the least weight gets cut loose first." I stood up. "You should think long and hard about how much you weigh," in his eyes. I didn't look at her again, turning to walk toward the bathroom. "Clean this place up. You'll cut your feet on the broken glass." I took a shower. When I came out, the living room had been tidied. The glass was swept up, the chair was upright. Jessica was still on the sofa, but she had curled into a ball, her face buried in her arms, her shoulders shaking slightly. She was crying, not the hysterical wails from before, but the quiet, hopeless sobs of utter despair. I ignored her, went straight to the bedroom, and closed the door. Lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling. Leo had hired a killer. His move was reckless and stupid, but it meant he was at the end of his rope. I needed to turn up the heat. The next morning, I got up and made breakfast as if nothing had happened. Fried eggs, toast, warm milk. Jessica emerged from the living room, her eyes swollen like walnuts, and sat silently at the table, picking at her food. She kept glancing at me, her expression a mix of hatred, fear, and a sliver of desperate curiosity. After I finished eating, I cleared my plate. "I have to work late tonight." She didn't respond. I left the apartment, but didn't go to the office. Instead, I drove to an old, run-down neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. In the basement of one of the buildings, I met Old Dog. I didn't know his real name and didn't care. In our line of work, a handle was enough. He was a little older than me, with messy hair and a faded t-shirt, sitting in front of a bank of monitors like a down-on-his-luck IT guy. But I knew he was one of the best information brokers in the city. For the right price, there was nothing he couldn't find. "Boss," he said, handing me a flash drive. "Recording of the deal between Leo and Scarface Mike, plus files on a few of Mike's guys. They're planning to make their move in the next couple of days. You're the target. They're going to make it look like an accident." I took the drive, plugged it into my laptop, and put on my headphones. The audio quality wasn't great, but the conversation was clear enough. Leo's voice was agitated. "Money isn't the issue. It has to be fast. I can't let him cause any more trouble." A rough, gravelly voice, presumably Scarface Mike's, replied, "Relax, Mr. Vance. We're professionals. A car accident, maybe a fall from a high place. It'll be clean. And his wife, if she starts talking." "Understood." Taking care of both of them is less complicated. I closed the audio file and pulled out the drive. Just as I thought, Leo had decided to cut his losses and get rid of the evidence and the witness. Can you track their movements? I asked. Old Dog scratched his messy hair. It's tricky. They use burner phones, but I could try feeding some bad intel onto their usual channels, create some interference. Do it. I pushed a thick envelope across the table. This is for the follow-up. Old Dog swept the envelope into a drawer without looking at it. Thanks, boss. Leaving the basement, the sunlight felt harsh. I sat in my car, not leaving right away. Leo was playing for keeps now. That meant I couldn't afford to play games any longer. It was time to close the net. I took out a burner phone and dialed a number. Hello. Am I speaking with Director Thompson at the IRS Criminal Investigation Division? I'm the anonymous source who provided the materials on Leo Vance of Apex Technologies. Yes, that's me. I have additional, more critical evidence regarding his use of an underground banking network to move large sums of money offshore. I also have an audio recording of him attempting to hire a hitman. Yes, I can provide you with everything. After that call, I used the encrypted app to message several financial journalists and social media influencers, attaching partial proof of Leo's corporate fraud and illegal fundraising. It was enough to create a media firestorm and ensure he could never recover. With that done, I drove home. The apartment was quiet when I opened the door. Jessica wasn't in the living room. I walked to the bedroom and heard a muffled, tearful voice from inside. He knows everything. Leo, he hired someone. They're coming after us. What are we going to do? She was on the phone. With who? Her parents? Or Leo? I slowly turned the doorknob. Jessica was sitting on the edge of the bed, her back to the door, phone pressed her ear. Her voice was shaking. What's the point of saying that now? If it wasn't for you. Hello? Hello? The other person had hung up on her. She flung the phone across the room, buried her face in her hands, and her body started to heave with sobs. I walked over and picked up her phone. The screen was still lit. The most recent call was to Leo. Still holding out hope for him, I asked, dangling the phone. Jessica jumped, spinning around, her face completely drained of color. When did you get back? Right when you were asking him what to do. I tossed the phone back on the bed. What did he say? Did he tell you not to panic? That he'd make arrangements? Jessica's lips moved, but no words came out. His arrangement, I stated calmly, is to have Scarface Mike get rid of both of us. No loose ends. Jessica's eyes widened, her breathing becoming ragged and shallow. You're lying. You've been lying to me this whole time. You'll find out soon enough if I'm lying. I looked at her. The police should be paying him a visit any minute now. As if on cue, my own phone rang, my regular one. I answered it and put on speaker. A man's voice came through the line. Is this Mr. Ethan Hayes? This is the Economic Crimes Division of the Chicago PD. We've opened an investigation into the case you reported regarding Leo Vance's financial crimes and conspiracy to commit murder. We have Mr. Vance in custody. We need you to come in and verify a few details. Jessica froze, looking as if she'd been struck by lightning. The last bit of color drained from her face, the final spark of light in her eyes extinguished. I spoke into the phone. Of course, officer. I'll cooperate fully. I hung up. The bedroom was utterly silent. Jessica slowly slid to the floor, her eyes empty, as if her soul had fled her body. I walked over and crouched down in front of her, meeting her vacant gaze. Now do you believe me? She didn't react, a hollow shell. In my last life, this is how you two did it. Step by step, you backed me into a corner. My voice was low but hit the silence like a hammer. You, Leo, and all the people who watch for entertainment, who even helped you kick me while I was down. You think I'm cruel? You think I'm a monster? I gave a soft, bitter laugh. Jessica, this is just the beginning. I stood up and looked down at her one last time. The game isn't over yet. I turned, walked out of the bedroom, and gently closed the door. Outside, sunlight streamed through the window, creating a bright patch on the floor. I took out my burner phone and dialed another number. Hello, is this Amanda? My name is Ethan Hayes, Jessica's husband. I'd like to have a private chat with you about the money laundering scheme you and your husband have been running with Leo Vance, using my wife's company as a front. A terrified gasp came from the other end of the line. I hung up and walked to the window, looking down at the street below. I grabbed my jacket, ready to head out and meet the very frightened Amanda. Behind me, from the bedroom, came a long, heart-wrenching, soul-tearing scream. It sounded just as piercing as her laughter had, right before I jumped in my last life. This time it was her turn. I stood in the living room, listening to Jessica's agonized wails. The sound was like the death cry of a cornered animal, piercing through the door and echoing in the empty apartment. My phone buzzed again. It was Old Dog. Leo's in custody. Both economic crimes and violent crimes divisions are on it. Attempted murder for hire on top of the financial fraud. He's going away for a long time. Scarface might flip too. The evidence is solid. Is it clean? I type back. Don't worry. All trails lead back to Leo's own desperation after his cash flow dried up. We're not connected in any way. Final payment is in your account. Thanks, boss. Call me if you need anything else. I put the phone away. The screaming had subsided, replaced by a broken, muffled weeping. I walked to the bedroom door. Without opening it, I spoke to the person on the other side. Clean yourself up. Your parents will be here soon. The crying stopped instantly. Half an hour later, the doorbell rang. My in-laws were standing outside, their faces grim. My mother-in-law shot me a venomous look as she brushed past and rushed toward the bedroom. Jessica, my baby, what have they done to you? My father-in-law didn't move. He stood in the entryway, looking at me with a complex expression, anger mixed with a poorly hidden panic. Ethan, what the hell is going on? Jessica lost her job, and now there are all these rumors about her and that Leo Vance. People are saying he was arrested, and she's involved. Dad, I said calmly, Jessica made a serious mistake at work and was fired. I only just learned about her affair with Leo Vance and his criminal activities. The police will sort out the details. He opened his mouth to say something, but just let out a heavy sigh, his face aging years in a single moment. He must have heard the rumors too, known it was more complicated than a simple mistake, but he had no way to pin anything on me. From the bedroom, I could hear my mother-in-law's raised voice and Jessica's frantic replies. Words like Ethan and he set me up drifted out. My father-in-law's brow furrowed, but he eventually turned and walked toward the bedroom. I didn't follow. I went into the study and closed the door, shutting out the noise. I turned on my computer. On the encrypted app, there was a new contact request with the name Amanda. I accepted it. A message came through immediately, a voice note. I clicked play. A panicked, crying female voice filled my ears. Ethan, please, I'm begging you, let us go. My husband and Leo forced me into it. I never took a penny of that money. Jessica didn't know anything. It was all Leo. I cut her off, typing a reply. 3 p.m. The Daily Grind Coffee Shop, South Side. Come alone. Okay, I'll be there. I closed the chat. Amanda, Jessica's supposed best friend. In my last life, she was always whispering in Jessica's ear, mocking me for being useless, all while she and her husband used Jessica's company connections to launder their money. She was next. At 2:50 p.m., I arrived at the coffee shop and chose a secluded table by the window. At 2:55, Amanda showed up. She was dressed down, wearing sunglasses, looking nervously around. When she saw me, she hurried over, her hands shaking as she sat down. Ethan, she took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were red and swollen. I said nothing, just pushed a file across the table. It contained copies of bank transfers and contracts detailing her and her husband's involvement in the money laundering scheme. She glanced at the first page, and her face went white. Ow, how I got it doesn't matter, I said, taking a sip of coffee. What matters is what happens if I send this to the IRS and the FBI. Do you think your sentence will be any lighter than Leo's? Amanda started trembling, her voice cracking. Please, we were wrong. We'll give all the money back. Double. Just please, let us go, we have kids. Kids? I looked up at her. When you were using Jessica as your shield, letting her take all the risk, did you think about her? Did you think about me? She was speechless, her face pale. If you want me to let you go, fine. I set down my cup. First, you will donate every cent of your illegal earnings, in Jessica's name, to the City Children's Hospital. I want a receipt within 3 days. Second, you and your husband will leave this city and never come back. Third, you'll keep your mouth shut. Amanda grabbed onto the offer like a lifeline, nodding frantically. Yes, we'll donate it. We'll leave right away. We won't say a word. Thank you, Ethan. Thank you. Don't thank me. I stood up. You should thank yourselves for not pushing me even further. Leaving her to her relieved sobs, I walked out of the coffee shop. The sun was bright. My phone rang. It was Megan, another one of Leo's circle and Jessica's former follower. I declined the call and sent her a text. Tomorrow morning. Bring everything you have on Leo and Jessica. Westgate of Lincoln Park. Wait for me. The reply was almost instant. Okay, Ethan, I'll be there. See how compliant they become when fear outweighs greed. I didn't go back to the apartment. The place was toxic, filled with the resentment of Jessica and her parents. I checked into a hotel near my office and caught up on some work. That evening, my mother-in-law called, her tone demanding, telling me to come home so we could talk. It was 9 o'clock when I arrived. My in-laws were sitting on the sofa, looking grim. Jessica was nowhere to be seen. The bedroom door was shut. Ethan, my mother-in-law started in, pointing a finger at me. You knew about Jessica and Leo all along, didn't you? You set her up. Admit it. Mom, I sat down in the armchair opposite them. The evidence was discovered by our company's internal audit. The tip was sent anonymously to the compliance department. And Leo hired a hitman of his own free will. Which part of that sounds like something I could arrange? She was flustered, grasping at straws. Well, it must be because you were a bad husband. You neglected her. Otherwise, why would she? I was a bad husband. I interrupted, turning to my father-in-law. Dad, for 8 years, I paid most of the bills. When Jessica got a promotion, I bought her a car. Every time something needed to be done at your house, who took care of it? The fridge, the washer, who replaced them? You call that being a bad husband? My father-in-law avoided my eyes and mumbled, Ethan, we know you did a lot for this family. But now Jessica's career is ruined. Her reputation is destroyed. What is she going to do? What is she going to do? My voice turned cold. When she was cheating on me, when she and Leo were plotting how to embezzle from her company, why didn't she stop and ask herself that? My mother-in-law shot to her feet. What kind of attitude is that? She is your wife. And did she ever treat me like a husband? I stood up as well, my voice low but firm. When she told me to my face that other men could get her off, was she treating me like a husband then? My mother-in-law's face flushed a deep red. She stood there, mouth open, speechless. My father-in-law stared at me in shock, clearly having no idea Jessica would say such a thing. The bedroom door creaked open. Jessica's pale, gaunt face appeared in the crack, her eyes burning with a venomous hatred for me. I met her gaze and said, each word deliberate. She made her choice. Now she has to live with the consequences. I'm not a garbage can. I don't take in trash. Without another look at any of them, I turned and walked to the door. Ethan, Jessica's sharp voice, filled with a bone-deep hatred, rang out behind me. You'll get what's coming to you. I opened the door and paused without turning back. Maybe, I said, but I'll definitely be after you. The door shut behind me, sealing off the curses and the crying. The next morning, I went to the park. Megan was already there, clutching a flash drive. She ran over to me as if I were her savior. Ethan, it's all here. The records of the accounts Leo had me manage and some chat logs showing Jessica knew about some of it. She nervously shoved the drive into my hand, avoiding my eyes. I took it and slipped it into my pocket. You can go. Ethan. Megan hesitated, fear on her face. Leo, he's not going to let me get away with this. Leo can't even save himself, I said. Keep your mouth shut. Find a new place to live, and no one will bother you. She looked as though she'd been granted a pardon, bowing repeatedly. Thank you, Ethan. Thank you. I'll leave right away. I'm buying a ticket today. She practically ran out of the park. I watched her disappear, then took out the flash drive. The contents were enough to send Jessica to prison, too, if I wanted. But I didn't. Letting her live in ruin, stripped of everything, surrounded by the judgment of others and tormented by her own mind, was a far worse punishment than a few years in jail. The next few days were quiet. Amanda and her husband sold some assets, made a large donation to the Children's Hospital in Jessica's name, and then vanished from the city. Megan was also gone. The case against Leo was airtight, and he was fast-tracked through the justice system toward a long prison sentence. Jessica was questioned multiple times in connection with Leo's case. While she wasn't a primary target, her reputation was destroyed. The people who once fawned over her now avoided her like the plague. My in-laws tried to see me a few more times. Their attitude was softer, almost pleading, asking if I could, for the sake of our 8 years of marriage, help Jessica find a job or give her some money to live on. My only reply was a cold. The fact that I haven't kicked her while she's down is the last bit of mercy she'll get from me. They finally gave up and never came back. A month later, I filed for divorce, citing adultery and irreconcilable differences. The evidence was overwhelming, and the process was swift. The day the divorce was finalized, the sky was overcast. I packed the last of my things from the place I once called home and loaded them into my car. Jessica was standing on the sidewalk, wearing cheap clothes, her hair dry and brittle. Her eyes were numb, all of her former radiance gone. She looked at me, her lips moving as if she wanted to say something. I didn't give her the chance. I started the car and pulled away. In the rearview mirror, her figure grew smaller and smaller, eventually becoming a blurry dot before disappearing completely. I rented a clean, minimalist apartment near my office. Life seemed to return to normal. Work, home, and the occasional message from old dog to tie up loose ends. 3 months later, on a Saturday afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Jessica's mother. Her voice was old and tired. Ethan, Jessica. Yesterday afternoon, she took a bottle of sleeping pills. I held the phone, saying nothing. Muffled sobs came from the other end. They couldn't save her. I was silent for a few seconds, then spoke, my voice calm. My condolences. Then I hung up the phone. Outside, the sky was a flat, dull gray, threatening rain. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in a long time. Honey, I said, I'm coming to pick you and our son up. We're going home. The end.